What is going on, everyone? Welcome to the Morning Skate Podcast. I am Matt Moody, going solo through Thursday's massive 14 game NHL slate. Thank you all for tuning in. Give me a quick moment as I alert the masses that the much awaited Morning Skate Podcast is live and on air. So once we do that, then we will get things started. So yeah, I was pretty surprised to log into the DraftKings Thursday slate and find that there were actually really good contests out there in the lobby. It's a 10K to first 555, but like the 222, yeah, that's what it is. The 222, 10K to first, the $44 3K, and the 20 is also a 10K, and this is the start of March Madness. So um, I was quite surprised to see that. I was also shocked to find that on a 14 game slate, DraftKings did not chop off the late games. So hey, when DraftKings does things I like, I feel like I gotta show them a little bit of support and give the people a podcast so that people will put money on these DraftKings slates. And what do you know? The gods smiled upon me. Finally hit the stupid boost parlay thing on the DraftKings Sportsbook for Wednesday night. Shout out to Jake McCabe blocking two shots, the final leg, to get the job done for me. So it is an absolute bonanza over here in the Moods household. So with all that said, we've got 14 games to get through. Whether you're doing this on Underdog or on DraftKings, I hope you will find some use out of this show. So let's get on into things. Leading off the slate, well, actually, why don't I share my screen first? There we go. Let's arrange this properly. I can make myself bigger now, can't I? That's fine. You don't really need to see the Sam Malinsky name there, and you can still kind of see it. So, anyway, for you over on the pod feed, of course, this is also a YouTube video on DJ's YouTube channel. Find the link in the description. That'll have the visual accompaniment to go along with the show. Basically, a sheet for each team of all the players, their last 10 game performances, and also some of their season to date and historical data as far as DK points, shot attempts, and primary points. So basically, how good is the player for fantasy? So starting things off, we have Colorado as a pretty sizable favorite heading into Ottawa. I had it up on the DraftKings Sportsbook, but it logged me out because obviously. Um, okay, actually, they are now even. Okay, cool. The the game is a 6.5 though, and so right away, first game off the bat, was kind of surprised to see that this game of the 14 games is a 6.5. So I think what we're going to be looking at is the Ottawa side of this game. Honestly, I don't really see much in this Colorado pricing. Um, we're going to get, we're not going to get a ton of absolute banger spots. So if you want to just play McKinnon, play McCarr, I believe they flipped Nachos and Nichushkin late in the game, but I'll need to do a double check on that. If you want to do something along those lines, I would not say no, but ultimately feels pretty pricey. We see that Nachos has cooled down in particular. Just he had some sky high expected fantasy point rates in his first handful of games with the team. It's just not been the case lately. He's been fine. I certainly don't think he's like a terrible play by any stretch, but it's not a play that I'm racing to get a piece of myself. And when you're stacking a line for, either flip Nichushkin down there, he's been fine too. But again, when you're stacking a line for probably about 20K, depending on who's who in the lineup, I think I would want a little bit more than a matchup with Ottawa. And sort of where my head goes is if this total holds as a 6.5, that just doesn't feel. I mean, it just doesn't feel right. I don't really understand what makes this game special. The entire slate is a bit of a downer. It like I said, there's only 2 games with a 6.5 total, but I don't think this game should be one of the two, in all honesty. So on the Ottawa side, where you have, I think, a little bit more interest, just because pricing's a bit lower. Uh, this all assumes that they don't make any huge changes after a pretty embarrassing, really important loss to the Montreal Canadiens on Tuesday night. Up what 3-2 in the third, they end up losing 6-3. Just get absolutely torched. So yeah, not the best situation for the Sens there, but I imagine not much will change. If it does, obviously, that would change, some of my thoughts on this game. But in general, you have Dylan Cousins. He leaves Buffalo, and what do you know? He's a good player now. Shocker. But him and Batherson are a combined 9,400 against a back-to-back Colorado team that it's fine defensively. I don't think there's much there, though. And again, if they're going to have a 3.2 team total, I think they're actually going to catch some ownership. So if you're looking to dodge that, maybe you play Jake Sanderson, like I sort of suggested last slate, just because he's been really good. He's been one of the better defenders in the entire NHL. And if that's going to be the case and the rest of the team's going to get some ownership, then I think you should definitely be sort of playing a 4-man stack or something along those lines. Anything else here? Oh, there's a little picture here. I just wanted to. I was on Twitter, trying to find lines, and I found something that I'll just read it out. New Senator Fabian Zetterlund has been known for his incredible deadlifting abilities. For the 5'11", quote, human cigarette machine, as Paul Bissonnette called him on Sportsnet's trade deadline broadcast, Zetterlund was quick to remind Sportsnet.ca that he deadlifted 660 pounds, not 600 pounds, with a wry smirk, and that he wanted to do it to prove to himself that he could. I don't know. That's he maybe shouldn't be on the fourth line. I don't know. That's pretty intimidating that this dude deadlifts 660 pounds. I got to get DJ on for scale to see what that guy can deadlift, because I personally have no idea what he's deadlifting, but I don't know if I could deadlift 10 pounds. Anyway, let's go to Calgary at New Jersey. By the way, I'm updating the rainbow chart as we go, so you can see the first matchup. Not a ton of interest, maybe a little on Colorado, but nothing for this New Jersey and Calgary game for a good reason, almost certainly. And also, I'll get to the chat in a little bit. Obviously, once I stop having to look at 10 screens and talk. So, where was I? On the Calgary front, a big win for them against the Rangers on Tuesday. I'm a little bit leery of these lines. Like, obviously Calgary's not really a team that I've wanted to target. New Jersey is a team, though, that I sort of want to attack. With these D injuries and whatnot, and we know that a guy like Nazem Kadri can quote unquote carry a fantasy line. So the top line being 12.8K is fun, but Connor Zari's on the second power play and Pospisil's on the no power play. Meanwhile, the second line has Coronado, Frost, and Huberdeau. So Frost and Coronado are interesting. It's just they haven't really done much. They had a pretty good game against the Rangers, so maybe that's just a sign of things to come for them. But I don't know. I'm not really there. The full stack, the full power play stack nature of it, and the fact that it's 13.4K as a line going against the Devils, I don't love it. So I think in general, just staying away from Calgary is in order. On the Devils side, we did have some question marks on the lineup. I believe both Palat and Tatar did not practice on Tuesday. They are coming off a 2-1 win on, I think it was Monday now, where they gave up 45 shots to the Blue Jackets and won. So, hey, I guess anyway, they all count. But maybe that's, maybe with these injuries to, older guys like the Tar Palat, they get someone like Daniel Sprong in the lineup. It's worth keeping an eye on. There's a power play 2 job for him. If he jumps back in, I believe he would be the dead minimum. Let me just check that for you right here. Daniel Sprong would be 2,700. So if he manages to draw in alongside Dawson Mercer, I could be convinced that a mini stack or something could make some amount of sense. Let me just finalize this rainbow sheet really quick now that I'm almost done, and then I can actually pay attention to things, because it turns out having an hour to prepare is not enough time when there are 14 games and DJ calls you on his drive home. So shout out to DJ. He asked if he wanted to join. I'm like, I've been preparing to do a solo pod like all evening now. I'm not going to give that up because, you got home a little bit earlier than I would have anticipated. So I told him to enjoy his night, and hopefully he's doing that and not sitting in the chat trolling me. All right, here we go. The rainbow chart in all of its beauty. Let's get the zooms in. Oh boy. All right. Here is the zoom. Got a lot of games. Matchups wise, it looks like St. Louis and Vancouver. That's an interesting matchup we'll get to. Nashville versus Anaheim. Oh boy. Edmonton and Winnipeg. Carolina, San Jose, Utah, Buffalo. I don't think there's any too major surprises, but we will keep that in the holster as we go. All right. Now we are in the chat. What the hell happened in chat? Ryan Hartman scored. Boldy scored. Ogren scored. A great night to play McKinnon, Matthews, and a Seattle Onslaught. Huh. Yeah, I guess that's an L. Should have just. I knew when I saw that Ogren was what was Ross was playing that I should have just giga jammed, switched everything over. But hey, we stand with our Yanni Newman flock. All right. Anyway, back to the Thursday slate. New Jersey. I think the main area of interest is, of course, Timo Hischier and Nason. Nason not on the top power play, though. We did get confirmation in practice that this line stayed together. I believe the other lines are up for debate. Obviously, like I said, Palat, Tatar, they could miss, and that would bring in someone like Daniel Sprong. So I'll be keeping an eye out for that. The absolute dream is that Daniel Sprong plays alongside Jesper Bratt. Bratt's actually been playing or shooting a bit more now that Jack Hughes is no longer his running mate. So I don't think that means Daniel Sprong's like an insta lock for 8 shots, but that would be fun. I think that's certainly a better option than Eric Howla offensively. So that alone could make the game more fun, but unlikely to happen because, as we know, coaches hate fun. All right. Also, revenge spot. Jacob Markstrom going against his former club in Calgary. Next up, we get Toronto traveling to the Rangers. Let's see here. The matchup for neither team looks all too stellar. If I make this a little bit, even the goals here don't really line up. Toronto's been giving up a little bit more offensively, or defensively, I should say, to opposing offenses, but nothing too crazy, and they just had a very good game against the Avalanche. So certainly would not count the Rangers in the class of the Avalanche. Nyes, Matthews, Marner, Holmberg, Tavares, Nylander, McMahon, Domi, Robertson is how they will be lining up. I believe they switched around some D pairings. Carlo and Ekman Larson, I think, flipped. I don't think that matters for this game environment. Austin Matthews, I think, is back. He was absolutely firing the last couple of games. He had the thing where he scored a goal. He had 8 shots and 2 blocks. This dude just does it all. So kudos to Matthews, but 8,900 for him, totally fine. maybe a little less, maybe a little bit more reluctant to play Nyes and Marner in a full line stack. That is a 21.2K line stack. On these larger slates, I think it is quite viable to just take one-offs of these stud players and not limit yourself to needing his thinner line mates to get there, given there are 27 other teams to pluck values from. I'm not saying that you shouldn't stack on these slates, but normally you can find cheaper stacks that have really good point per dollar values associated with them, and you don't need to pay up for thin high end stacks. So Austin Matthews is a one off, absolutely in play. We're calling it. Austin Matthews is back, and he's going to go on a run for us here. Just in time for all my best puck bags to be completely empty. On the Rangers side, I'm just using what they had from the end of that Calgary game. I honestly don't know if that'll stick. So Miller, Trocheck, Cooley, Kreider, Zibanejad, Panarin, Lafreniere, Carrick, and Juuso Parssinen is how they closed off the Calgary game. Obviously, things went in a blender. So Panarin, Zibanejad, Kreider is interesting because it is perfectly power play correlated. The main problem here is that because Zibanejad might just be dust, especially without GT Miller on his line. So, is Zibanejad going to be able to carry the corpse of Chris Kreider around if Artemi Panarin's not, superstar MVP level Artemi Panarin like he was last year? I don't know. I'm a little bit worried there. The Miller Trocheck Cooley line is a good bit cheaper. GT Miller is a good playmaker, but it's kind of gross correlations wise because you get Miller on the top power play and then Trocheck and Cooley on the second power play. But that line will chuck. It's I don't know, not this matchup, I don't think. But it's, I guess, a consideration. Any team on a back-to-back is worthy of considering stacking against, especially, this late in the year when the mileage adds up. I don't think that's a terrible strategy to use, and to at least give second thought to, some Rangers action. The prices, I don't think you're going to see much Chris Kreider below 5K. Maybe he's just done, but if he's not done, that price will be, 5,500 from here on out. Will Cooley seems like he's on an upward trajectory. So 3,800 for him alongside JT Miller and Trocheck in the top six. We probably don't see that for too often because you would think Lafreniere is eventually going to be back there. And this podcast is not going to be long enough for us to talk about what the hell happened to Lafreniere. So we're just going to move on past him being on a line of Sam Carrick and Juuso Parssinen. So speaking of teams we'll spend way too long on, the Philadelphia Flyers head into Washington. The matchup, as you might figure, does not look very good for the Flyers. Hey, did you know they can't score? Yeah, I've found out the hard way the last few slates. Caps look fine. They look much better when you remove or when you add goaltending into the equation, meaning they're beating goaltending quite easily. And the Flyers can't stop a beach ball. So good for the Caps there. On the Flyer side, I don't know if I don't know if we're going to see any changes here. I'm just not sure. I think it's worth calling out, though, that Forster, Cates, and Brink have put a guy on the top power play, or two guys on the top power play each of the last handful of games. And I think that's at least possible. I believe Sean Couturier has been flipping on and off the units, and, it's not like they're doing a ton. But we did see Bobby Brink go to the top unit, I think a couple of games ago, and get 3 points. That line had a Giga Smash. The line's 11K, and they're going against Washington, a team that has thrived on goaltending. It's not like they've just not been giving up any opportunities. So I want to see lines before I really, do anything further because I don't think the Flyers have scored in 2.5 games now. But that line, I think the price could be right versus, Couturier and Michkov. Sure, you can consider it. But if they're not playing with Owen Tippett, you're just relying on Michkov doing a whole hell of a lot. And I don't think you need to on a 14-game slate go so thin. Keeping an eye on Rasmus Ristolainen too. If he draws in, I think that helps the Flyers. He's actually been good this year, and we'll move on because I don't want to talk about Risto too much. On the Cap side, against the Detroit on Tuesday, they flip-flopped Ovi and McMichael, so it was McMichael, Strome, Wilson, Ovechkin, Dubois, Protas. I don't really know what the instigator for that was. Dylan Strome was a question mark with illness, but his minutes didn't take a real hit or anything. So I think they just wanted to switch things up for the hell of it. So uh, yeah, I don't think it matters. I mean, let's just be real. I don't really think this matters whatsoever for Ovi's outlook. Our PLD and Strom are basically the same price, and PLD is actually much more productive. So obviously lean toward the Ovi line. Does that make Ovi in a better play, on its face? I don't think so. But it's at least interesting. It's at least some fun. So OV PLD Protoss for 18K against the Flyers. Always an option. John Carlson trending down in price, just 5,100. A pretty good option too if you just want to tack someone on to that list. Let's see how at home the Washington D pairs lined up. Okay, so a 5-on-5, that OV Dubois Protoss line played an absolute shitload with Jake Chikrin. I just pulled up HockeyViz, and just showed that. And the Carlson line played mostly in a shutdown capacity with what? Nick Dowd, Beauvillier, and McMichael. So did McMichael just bounce around the lineup a bunch? Maybe. Anyway, the Strom line with Faravari pairing. So you can see it. You can see it on the screen. Maybe it's not quite as clean to play Carlson in a power play stack, but Jake Chikrin can also get there through shots. So I don't hate the idea of going a 5-on-5 stack either with Ovechkin, Dubois, leaving off Protoss because admittedly he's a little thin, doesn't really shoot, and you're kind of relying on a multi-point game from him at 4,500 versus Jake Chikrin. He can get 5 shots and an assist, and because he's a defenseman, like that's just much more powerful. So that's an idea for you. But I don't think I will be attacking this game too regularly. But all that remains to see. If Philly does some stupid shit, if Fristo doesn't play, maybe we just fire up the OV wagon and make that our sweat on Thursday. Next game up, Florida and Columbus. First mark here. Man, I miss playing Hedel, Cooley, Kako for like 11K. Yep, and then they decided that Hedel and Kako were the problems and traded them. So, hey, Chris Drury doesn't make good decisions, as this Buffalo Sabres fan knows. Florida and Columbus. We saw a practice today. Interestingly, for Florida, not only now is Aaron Ekblad suspended for the rest of the season, but Dmitry Kulikov is week to week. That means that your Florida Panthers are icing a decor of Gus Forsling, Seth Jones, Nico Mikkola, Tobias Bjornfot, Nate Schmidt, and Uvis Balinskis. That's a problem. So Florida, they're going to make the playoffs, and obviously Ekblad's going to be back. It sounds like Kulikov should be back, in that first round. But week to week is nothing to mess around with, and we're closing in on like a month until the first week of the playoffs. So, the lines up front, I just worry a little bit about being supported by poor puck movement on the back end. So Reinhart, Barkov, Rodriguez, Samoskevich, Bennett, Verhage. Bennett missed practice today, but I think he's fine. Again, don't have any firm word that he's going to play, but I think he's good to go there. And then Luosterainen, Lundell, Boakfist. No update on Marchand and Kachuk. I think they're still at least a couple weeks out, if not longer. So what we see is what we get. And heading into Columbus, I would love to be able to read quicker and to make it seamless. Heading into Columbus, the matchup for Florida actually doesn't look all that enticing from any standpoint, be it expected goals against, a minus 0.3 index, shot attempts, a minus 2.7 index, and goals also a minus 0.3 index. So a little bit of troubles here for Florida on the offensive side of things. Columbus looks a little bit better, but their actual goals and shot attempts are also looking pretty poor. So you're kind of just betting on chance generation out of them, which against Seth Jones and friends, maybe not the worst idea. But first, on the Florida end of things, Sam Miscavige is all the way up at 5,400 now. Bennett's 6,400. Verhage remains expensive. The Barkov Reinhart Rodriguez line is where I would go. That's 18.8K. But man, it's a pretty tough sell in my book. Samson's been awesome. He's not quite been getting the results, but he's taking shots from ridiculously dangerous locations, and he's getting a ton of primary assists. So Samson, when he's trending upward, always a fine option. But I don't really know what you do with it. Like, you're not really getting much value stacking Bennett, Samuscavage, Reinhardt, as has been my kind of my lean for the last little while. Seth Jones has just been a zero. I don't have his combination, I guess, of whatever teams in my natural stat trick thing, but just game log hunting since he joined the team. Let's see. Was it? I think it was it Florida? Yeah, it was Tampa, Florida. So since he joined, 7, 4, 6, 9, 11, 6, 3 DraftKings points. 5,700. No thank you. Maybe revenge bot versus Columbus is the only argument, but I think the field overplays Florida here personally. On the Columbus side, we get new lines in practice today. Columbus going Kent Johnson, Adam Fantilli, Kirill Marchenko. That line is perfectly power play correlated and just 15.7K. Yes, please, and thank you. Second line, Voronkov, Jenner, Chinikov. That line is 12.9K. Voronkov, likely top power play, but wouldn't be too surprised if Jenner or Chinikov replaced him. In any case, you're getting 3 power play guys, 1 top unit guy, almost certainly. Werenski, still 7,500. Uber productive, not quite as monstrously high output as, say, a month ago or 2 months ago, but still quite good. And again, on a 14-game slate, you can find a myriad of ways to make $7,500 at Werenski work. Otherwise, there's nothing else on the lineup that's super appealing to me. But Elvis, 7,300. Again, just sort of betting on the idea that Florida's not. I don't think Florida's the team that that their name brand is at the moment. Maybe Elvis is an option as Columbus fights for their playoff lives. Montreal and the Islanders. The matchup looking pretty decent, honestly, on both ends of things. We'll get to a few more paced up games later on, but from a shot attempt standpoint, this is the number 1 game on the slate, which is not super. It's not a super high pace or anything. Like, most of this is red, so it's not crazy high or anything. And the actual goals don't look so great because the Islanders are involved and Montreal's getting good goaltending. But if you're if you like shot attempts, if you like expected goals, this game at least has a little bit of opportunity for you. And you know exactly where it's coming from. The top line, Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, Slavkovsky, that runs you 18.3K. They were a little bit quiet against Ottawa, but the depth picked it up for them. We know that this team in general, though, is a one-line team, so no problems there. Once again, we have a situation where if you want to leave off Cole Caulfield and play Patrick Laine for 2K less, I have no problem with that. I think Suzuki, Slavkovsky are doing more than enough at 5-on-5 that, yeah, if Caulfield gets 2 shots and an assist, I feel like I'm taking a stab at Laine's power play upside. But I've said that so many times on this platform that I don't need to go fully in depth there. If you somehow have a question, just ask me in the Discord and I will talk your ear off for 7 minutes about it. Lane Hudson, 4,600. No, thank you. He's really cooled off from an expected fantasy standpoint generation. From an expected fantasy point generation standpoint. And down the lineup, seems like we missed it. Gallagher, Dvorak, Anderson went for a Giga Smash on Tuesday at less than 10K. I don't think we're running that one back, fellas. I'll be honest with you. And yeah, that's about it. On the Islanders side, Palmieri, Horvat, Holmstrom will cost you 16.4K. All power play 1 correlated. Both Noah Dobson and Tony DeAngelo were on the top power play. Also of note, Adam Pelech did miss that game. I want to say, let me just see if there's an update today. I'm pretty sure there was no update. Oh no, that's right. They got Pelech back from our podcast, but they replaced Romanov with him. Yeah, that's what happened. So there you go. If Romanov remains out, by the way, Romanov revenge spot. Many people are saying if Romanov misses, I think that levels up the matchup for Montreal considerably. The Islanders did take care of business against Pittsburgh, so not like there's a crazy one game sample to point to or anything. But I think Romanov's their best defensive player by a good amount, given the way that this season has fared for them. Pelech has some pedigree, but he's just simply not been good for a year or two now, at the very least. And Mike Riley defensively, pretty good, but I have no interest in Duclair Pajot-Lee at 13K. I believe that that's going to be their matchup line going up. Well, hold on. Anthony Duclair is probably not on a matchup line, right? So the fun part of being on a live stream is that I can just look things up, and you people have to let me do that. So let's see. When was the last Islanders home game? They played Florida at home. They won, so that should be pretty indicative of how things went. 5-on-5 matchups. The Barkov line. Yeah, they. Patrick Waugh does not believe in hard matching, I guess, so that's cool. In any case, I guess I'm on ice. Duclair, Pajot-Lee. If you want to play Anders Lee, fine. I mentioned the idea of Anders Lee and Mike Riley before the Pittsburgh game. If you want to go back to that, I'll at least take a peek at it. Mike Riley now 2,900, so the price is catching up. We talked about it. He's just a pretty good rates guy. He had 4 and 2, unfortunately. So if you played him, you didn't quite get one of the bonuses or a double bonus for that real smash. But 9 points for 3K, not the end of the world for sure. But Noah Dobson's a clear best play in this game. 6K, he's been on an absolute tear. He wrecked the Penguins. So I think he's a great play, one-off, stacked, whatever you want to do. Noah Dobson, certainly a priority for me on this slate. Next up, Vancouver and St. Louis. We mentioned it a little bit ago, but looking through the rainbow, St. Louis has just been awesome defensively. No real way around that. So, yeah, Vancouver figured out they could score goals against Winnipeg. Do I imagine that sticks? I don't think so. So, if you want to say Petey's back, he's with Besser and Höglander. He's going to play a shit ton with Quinn Hughes. So I think that's really the only line here that you can look at. I have no interest in DeBrusk, Suter, Sherwood, or O'Connor, Bluger, Garland. I think Garland would slot in there if he returns from his injury illness situation. And then Lekaramaki on the top power play is in the perfect power play spot, but is on the fourth line, and I believe only played something like 8 minutes last game. Let me just check that. He played 10. Yeah, he played 10 minutes last game. So 9 minutes, 8 minutes, 10 minutes his last 3 games. If there's a power play point prop offered somewhere, I would very much like that. Given I imagine it's going to be as considerably higher than, say, the Hughes, Pedersens of the world. He's on that left flank. And, I love that spot. I love that role. It's just the minutes aren't there to really bet goal props or point props. So power play points, though, that's obviously a pretty the market's not going to be, factoring in time on ice, because that's time on ice is going to be roughly equivalent to the Pedersens, the Bessers of this team. And Lekaramaki does have that weapon on the left flank. Tocchet's using him that way. And there's some pretty positive coach quotes about Lekaramaki there. So there's your power play point tout of the night in Lakaramaki. St. Louis, though, looking pretty spicy. Holloway and Kyrou have now just officially gone scorched earth on the NHL. St. Louis decided that they were just going to make the playoffs. Just hey, we want in, let us in, and I think they're going to do it. I mean, I'm financially incentivized for them to do it because I placed a bet on them on, I think, January 3rd. I looked at yesterday. I placed a bet on them to make the playoffs 7-1. I wrote about it in my newsletter. So if you don't subscribe to moods.beehive.com and you missed my throwaway remark that plus 700 was not correct for St. Louis, you're now going to have to bet them, I think, at plus 150-ish. So kudos to me, shout out to me. I may hedge that, we'll see. But yeah, plus 170 on the yes, minus 210 on the no right now for your St. Louis Blues. The main line of interest is, of course, Holloway, Shen, Kyrou. Kyrou and Holloway have just gone apeshit. You can look at the game logs for yourself if you want, but I think they're at 9 points in the last 3 games for each of them, or something insane like that. So, a good matchup. The rainbow chart likes it. Just note that they play on a power play with Jake Neighbors and Justin Falk. So, no Robert Thomas, unfortunately. But he's cooled off a little bit anyway. He was on a bit of a run where he was just like, I'm going to shoot a little bit more than usual. But that era is pretty much over. Anaheim and Nashville. Anaheim threw us all a curveball, and by all, I mean the 2% of us donkeys that were like, hey, let's game stack a game with 94 power plays and still lose. Anaheim threw us a curveball pregame by going Cutter, Strome, Terry, Vetrano, Carlson, Killorn, and Zegras, McTavish, Nestorenko. By the way, Colangelo did not travel with the team, so I would be surprised if he played on Thursday night either. We got that update on Tuesday. Mid-game against Dallas, they switched back to Vetrano, Strome, Terry, Gauthier, Carlson, Killorn, and they kept Zegras, McTavish, Nestorenko. So, that makes Mason McTavish kind of interesting because he's playing with Nestorenko and Zegras. Neither guy shoots a ton. Zegras is obviously going to be the playmaker. He's going to be much more of a playmaker than Cutter Gauthier. So if you're looking at shot props, if you're looking at, one-offs, I think McTavish makes sense. He's sticking on that top power play at the moment. Leo Carlson got the hot hand boost in place of Frank Vetrano to the top unit. To go with Ryan Strome and Troy Terry. So Frank Vetrano takes a big hit in his value at 6,200. Cutter, I think he's fine alongside Carlson and Killorn. I'm not prioritizing him, I think, at 4,700. Let's take a peek at the rainbow, though, to make sure there's not something here. Anaheim not looking great. Nashville looking a little bit better. But when you turn to the actual results on the ice, Nashville doesn't look so good in the goals index, and Anaheim actually looks okay. So, again, I think the pricing is fine on all these Ducks. I'm not going out of my way to 4-stack it for sure. Like, I'm thinking one-offs, maybe a mini stack, should do the trick. Jake Trouba, I think, is actually interesting at 4,200. I mean, you just watch the Ducks play, and he's always out there, and he's a rates monster. There's really no way around it. He blocks shots. He just chucks from the point. I think the Anaheim Ducks play at a tempo conducive to fantasy scoring. So a guy like Trouba, you're not, I guess Lacomb's 100 less, but I don't know. I guess it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to get a 3-man stack in, of course you go Lacombe with his power play mates. If you're looking in the 4K range for a defenseman, though, I think Trouba's a better option than a one-off Zellweger or a one-off Lacombe. So congratulations to both of them on their multi-goal games on Thursday night. On the Nashville side, no further update from them after their dismantling by the St. Louis Blues. So they went into that game with Forsberg, O'Reilly, Stamkos, Bunting, Sissons, Marchessault. Worth calling out that the power play did flip again back to Nick Blankenberg. He is $3,200 going against the Anaheim Ducks. I hope we get some sort of confirmation on this matter, but keep in mind the last time we saw the situation, they were playing the Sharks, and Philip Forsberg was 11% owned on that slate. I think it was like a 10 gamer, and Blankenberg was like 4%. And, you know, he's super cheap. He's even cheaper than he was then. Anytime you get a power play one defenseman at 5% owned, like that's just silly season. Levshinov on Chicago was like 40% owned last slate against Seattle. That's just because he's a 3K defenseman on a power play one. So if the projection sites don't have Nick Blankenberg, make sure you fire that one up. Stacked or unstacked, just you can't really beat the value versus ownership sort of leverage calculation there. I'm hoping for some line changes, power play changes to be confirmed, but we'll see. I'm not going to talk about Michael Bunting on this podcast. Next game up, we have Tampa at Dallas in a much better on ice game than I think it is in the fantasy streets. Kucherov confirmed playing with Cirelli and Hagel, point centering Gensel and Yanni Gord. Yanni Gord having an insane expected fantasy point production since he's joined Tampa. I don't know what to make of that. But maybe 3,200. That's an interesting one in the top six. It seems like they're sticking to 11 and 7. Obviously, make sure that's confirmed. But Gonçalves, Nick Paul, Oliver Bjorkstrand, Glendening, Gergensons, and then 7 defensemen. So Victor Hedman is 5,600. That strikes me as a little strange. I'm not really I think that's a little low for Victor Hedman. And even though they're going 11 and 7, he's not a guy who you would expect to have his minutes cut at all in that circumstance. So especially in a competitive matchup, this is a matchup with the Stars. Like, it's very unlikely they get out 3-0 in coast. I think this is the sort of game that you would want, some sort of a game stack. And Victor Hedman is a perfect way to get exposure to Kucherov, to point Gensel, but you pay a little less, you use the D slot. Just an interesting name there. I'm a little leery on Oliver Bjorkstrand at this point. Like, I would like to see some concept or some proof of concept before I just continue to play it at 4,100. The last 2 games, he has played 13 minutes and 11 minutes and gotten a grand total of 0 fantasy points. So, he's listed on the top power play, but you got to do something, bud. So Kucherov, Hedman, that's about it for me. Maybe Yanni Gord. If you play Yanni Gord, maybe just play Braden Point, because Braden Point thrives on efficiency. If Gord's having a game, that you're looking for, a 17, 18 point game, there's probably some efficiency going on. So just play Braden Point with Gord. I think that would be the move. And then you could play it with Kucherov or Hedman if you wanted to and leave off Gensel. On the Dallas side, they lost in overtime to Anaheim, so I don't think they'll change these lines. Robertson, Hintz, Rantanen, 20.8K. They were the Giga Chalk last slate. Didn't work. Ho-hum. Marchment, Duchesne, Granlund, 14.6K. A little interesting. Thomas Harley, I owe you a huge apology. I disrespected my king. I said, his last 10s don't look so good. And he said, bitch, you said what? Like, I'm just going to go out there, have 3 points, score a goal, just do Thomas Harley things. The dude is a rock star. Ben Johnston, Bork, Steele, Oscar Pack, Colin Blackwell. I mean, Dallas is a disaster down their lineup. It's here. I'm not pulling up the shiny sheet right away, but all right. Tampa, pretty good matchup. Dallas, not so much, and that is sort of what I'm trying to get at here. Dallas is just managing to outscore their problems defensively, but any decor with Labushkin, Lindell, and Ceci making up their top 4 alongside Harley is going to be in for some trouble. Matthew Dumba gets regular run here. Like, we're not dealing with a lockdown Dallas Stars squad. We saw that against Anaheim. I certainly think we could see that again against Tampa here. So I'm keeping a close eye on Tampa ownership. I think the Dallas pricing is just a little high. But if we're going to see them, they burn the field, so no one's going to play them. They're going to be 3% owned, hence Robertson, Rantanen. I think for these sort of lines, matchup just doesn't matter. Like, they're better than any line to go up against at any time. Like, they're better offensively than any line is defensively, in the same way that, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes are better than the teams they go up against, whether it's the number 1 defense or number 20 defense. It's just a matter of how the game flows. And so I think these sort of games, whatever you lose in defensive matchup, you sort of gain in like the offensive urgency. So keeping an eye on ownership in this spot overall. I do think there's lots of ways to get creative though, and build some stacks, build some game stacks. We'll circle back on it tomorrow. See what's going on. Next up, LA heads into Chicago. This game is ringing a bell for me. Did these two teams play very recently? I don't know. We'll see. LA scuffling along. But they're not really scoring at 5-on-5, but Chicago's allowing enough goals for everyone in the league to get some against them. Of course, Chicago, terrible matchup against this LA team that is locked down defensively. I don't think I'm fighting 17K AK-47's line. More Deneau Fogel even is 15K. LaFerrier Byfield Fiala is 16K. These all just feel like a lot. Like, you're basically saying LA scores 6 if you're betting on these lines at ownership, I think. I don't know how to tell you which line it's going to be today. Byfield has gotten some run on the top unit lately, so this perfect correlation we see might just be a mirage. And again, LA is a team that thrives on just constricting their opponents until they pass out. And they've relied on Quentin Byfield to do a lot of creating and clutch moments lately. So, like, I just don't think this is a team on a 14-game slate that you want to play into ownership. So that is my official stance. We'll keep an eye out for an 11-7 setup. They did lose to Minnesota last time out. So if they go to 11-7, then you introduce, things like Kempe, Fiala, stacks where, like, yeah, of course that makes a lot of sense. They're going to play some together at 5-on-5. They might play a lot together at 5-on-5, and of course they'll play together in the power play. Just having that 11-7 setup ensures that their minutes will be sky high. So that's what I'm looking for personally. I'm not trying to play Byfield at 5,600. I'm not trying to catch a LaFerriere peak game. He just sort of lost his role when Kuzmenko came in. And I'm certainly not trying to catch a 10.7K Kuzmenko-Kopitar pairing. So, yeah. And of course, I'm not playing Drew Doughty, but you already knew that. On the Chicago side, hey, did you guys know? Chicago changed their lines again. That's right. Jason Dickinson, Connor Bedard, Frank Nazar, Teravainen, Donato Mikheyev, and Foligno, Doc Slager. It actually remains the same. Kudos to Sorensen for keeping something the same. And Veleno, Reichel, Bertuzzi. What does Mark have to say about I hit Dumbo with the government name? Yeah, I just got sick of updating Natural Stat Trick every time I import it. So I just put Matthew Dumba in here. And it turns out I'll just read whoever's on the screen. So, yeah, Matthew Dumba, you get in to the principal's office. Anyway, if you're considering Chicago against LA, you have rocks in your head. Levshinov is, like, if you want to do it, fine, but 3,300, like, I don't think you're missing out on much if you just don't play it here. He's a good play, but probably a little too owned. I guess maybe the projection systems are just so sensitive to the matchup that they'll play anyone in a 6.5 total on a power play 1 at 3K. But I kind of feel like there's a little bit of frothiness around Levshinov, and getting him attached to this vaunted Chicago power play against the LA Kings is not my idea of a fun Thursday night, honestly. So let's just keep things moving. Like, literally, fuck the Blackhawks. Like, just get out of here. Winnipeg at Edmonton. This one could be an absolute banger. We will find out. But Winnipeg getting embarrassed by Vancouver last time out. This game has the best expected goals index of the entire night. It has some decent actual goals to back it up. So, yeah, Winnipeg in the bounce back spot. Connor Scheifele Velarde should remain the same. It's going to run you 20.4K. Worth calling out, the Edmonton matchup is a little bit more difficult because Matthias Ekholm is back in, also Zach Hyman, but Ekholm actually matters. So you're basically saying that the Ekholm Bouchard pairing is going to spend a lot of time out against Winnipeg 1. So it's a slight downgrade. I think I'm more interested in Edmonton myself, but you'd be silly to not at least consider some stacks on the Winnipeg front. Perfetti, Nemestikov, Ehlers did remain the same last game, but because they moved Lowry to the fourth line and they moved Morgan Barron between Niederreiter and Mason Appleton, I think we could see some changes. I don't think it's likely, but at least be on the lookout for Winnipeg here. I'm going to consider Colin Miller, 2,500 power play 2. This dude just fires missiles. He's the dead minimum in a matchup I kind of just want a piece of. And guess what? If Edmonton's getting a lot of power play opportunities, who's getting some power play cannon loadings? It's Colin Miller. So just always a guy that is, the reason this is important is Neil Pionk is out. He is, I believe, week to week. So there's just that vacant power play 2 spot. Dylan Sandberg has taken a step up, but he's 4,300. So whatever, just take the 2,500 punt and say, yes, give me my 15 minutes in power play time, because there's at least a chance that Colin Miller gets 5 shots and a goal. Is it the most likely thing in the world? Absolutely not. But yeah, last game he played 17 minutes. So you're talking about a decent range of outcomes for a $2,500 defender. That's where I would get my exposure here. Ehlers is fine. First line, fine. But I'm not really too interested in stacking Winnipeg for the most part. On the Edmonton side of the house, like I mentioned, Ekholm is back in the lineup. He plus Bouchard just went absolutely apeshit against Utah. Ekholm, did he have a 4-point night or just a 3-pointer with a double bonus? Let me just pull up the old game log. All right. Okay. Ekholm had a 3-point night, 3 shots, 4 blocks, 34 DraftKings points. Well done by you, good sir. 4,500. Whatever. Fool me once. That's a pretty good thing to come back to. And again, I think a more fun matchup than the field might let on originally. We did see Skinner line up alongside McDavid and Hyman. He did not do anything, of course, because why would he? He had 12 minutes and 3 points on a night where Zach Hyman scored twice. Yep, scored twice, had 7 shots, 38 DraftKings points. So shout out to Jeff Skinner for doing absolutely nothing longer than anyone else. Of course, Connor McDavid in play. You're a donkey if you consider Edmonton and don't play Leon Draisaitl. We'll just say that once again. He absolutely dudded last time out. So either this is going to be the saddest way to lose a 5-1, 6-1 Hart Trophy bet that I have on Draisaitl, who's minus 250 right now to win the award, or he's going to bounce back in a big way against Winnipeg here in depth matchups for them. So I like Draisaitl, more than McDavid. Surprise, surprise. Corey Perry and Connor Brown, not my idea of a fun time. So again, for me, it's probably just a one-off Draisaitl, but Darnell Nurse and Jake Woolman are a D pairing now with Ekholm back in. I'm not too interested in playing Darnell Nurse at 5,200, but I think there's at least a path to him sort of I guess I don't see Jake Wallman joining the team and Darnell Nurse saying, okay, I'm going to be the stay-at-home guy now, because he just simply can't do that. Like, you have Evan Bouchard. If Darnell Nurse could do that, he would have already done it by now. Whereas I think Jake Wallman has a little bit more like useful of a skill set. He's a bit more pliable, so you can place him, in any sort of role, and he'll be okay. So I kind of think that this is a big downgrade for Jake Wallman and a bit of an upgrade for Darnell Nurse. Of course, he will spend a lot of time with that Draisaitl pairing, which is why this is a relevant conversation. So I guess you could say Jake Wallman playing in the stay-at-home role has back-to-back 6 block shot games, so like, does it really matter that he's not rushing up the ice as much as he was in San Jose? I don't know. But no power play time at 5,400. I'm not inclined to pay to find out. Elsewhere, Podkolzin, RNH, Arvidsson, Janmark, Henry, Kapanen. Cool. Whatever. Not really interested in those guys. All right. A few more games left. We have Buffalo and Utah. This is about the time where I realized, shit, it's 9:45. We got to get going. So apologies in advance if any of these are drastically fucked up from a line standpoint. I did see we have Buffalo lines from practice today. I did not see a power play unit. So we have Peterka, Tage, and Alex Tuck. I'm projecting that they move Tuck back to the second unit, and that, I don't know, that doesn't really make sense to keep McLeod on the top unit when Peterka's probably playing that flank. I'm not sure. So I guess we'll see. But at the very least, it's possible that this line is power play 1 correlated. It's very possible, though, that Tage and Tuck are on the power play 1 and Peterka's not, or that all 3 of them are on the top power play and McLeod is not. I think the only guarantees are, of course, Tage, Dahlin, and a net front Jason Zucker. So Utah just gave up an absolute a clown show to Edmonton, and Buffalo 1 is 21K against them. Decent underlines, not stellar for the price, but it's fine. Like, you're talking a line with 33 expected fantasy points per game over the last 10 as a trio. It's not quite, I believe Matt brought it up just sort of offhand on one of our pods this past month, where he was like, yeah, about 2x is like what I look for in Moods sheets. And it's like, wait a second, like what? And he was right. Like, literally the sort of the, I guess, subliminal messaging that my brain sort of takes into things is like, yeah, about a 2x mark is a pretty good number for, especially these mid-tier, upper-tier price guys. Like, that's sort of the magic number. Doesn't mean anything, of course not. These aren't projections, but like, it is sort of a useful rule of thumb to keep in mind as you're reviewing the rainbow charts and everything else that I post, just for the context of knowing what they are and what they're useful for. I think Zucker, though, is still in play at 5K. He's just the net front guy. He's quality at what he does. I certainly don't think Utah is a masterclass of clearing out the net front. So I'm hoping to get more confirmation that like McLeod's going to be on the power play as well, and that's sort of where I would go with things. But it's probably a little too much time spent on your Buffalo Sabres. Shout out to line 3 though: Greenway, Krebs, and Quinn. 9.2K, 2 power play guys probably, maybe even a third if they want Greenway on the second unit over Zach Benson for net front purposes. So I don't know. It's terrible, but sometimes you need cheap lines, and that could be one. Against this Utah team, we did not get a practice today to see how they're going to react to their dismantling by the Edmonton Oilers. I imagine there will be changes here, so be on the lookout. Dylan Guenther, 6,400. I don't know. I'm not sure why did his price go down. What are we doing here? Like, this dude is quite literally on another planet. He has 42 shots over his last 10 games. Like, I mean, a guy averaging 4 shots a night should be more than 6,400 against the Buffalo Sabres. And then you mix in that this is not Brendan Gallagher we're talking about. Like, this is a dude with an absolute cannon. Yeah, Dylan Guenther is a phenomenal play. And as Matt would astutely note, his expected fantasy point production is more than double his price tag. So useful stuff there. We are on Logan Cooley, top line watch. So who do we stack him with? Who the hell knows? It could be Peyton, Keller, Schmaltz, and we're back to Cooley, Gunther. So it's just kind of a who knows situation. I will once again throw my hat in the ring for Sean Dursey as a stacking option, seeing as Keller, Schmaltz, and Sergachev will spend a ton of time together. You get a Sean Dursey in there with Dylan Gunther, and you're just sort of betting on Dursey doing enough at 3,800 to get by. This is just a better player than his price tag indicates for fantasy. Obviously, he's not the top dog anymore with Sergachev in town, but his long-term numbers are pretty solid, and he's capable of blocking shots as well. So 20 minutes, offensive upside, block shot capabilities. It's all good by me for Sean Dursey. So big ups on the second line. Clayton Keller's been really good, so no qualms with him, but I just prefer Gunther for my own personal bias. All right, final two games. I will admit I did not look once into Boston or Vegas here. I hope you can forgive me. By the way, Buffalo and Utah, the Rainbow chart's pretty favorable for top 3 expected goal pace, top 5 Corsi pace, and top 1 goal pace at 5-on-5 last 10 games. So nothing to really dispute with the matchup, and it's good both ways. Obviously, Utah's most recent game holding a decent amount of weight there, because I think that's 25% of the 10 game sample is the most recent game, and they got floored by Edmonton. But hey, we talked about some Buffalo pieces that could be in play. So for Boston, you're basically stacking around Pasta. That's it. Middle stat, Lindholm, top power play with Morgan Geeky, whatever. I don't feel too compelled to talk anymore about the Boston Bruins heading into Vegas. My plan was just to pull up their last game and then showcase it and then say, does that last into this game? I don't know either, because when was their most recent game? It was Sunday against... Is that right? Wow, they got a long time off. Good for them. It was Sunday against Detroit, and they got shut the hell out. So these are what lines were last game. Your guess is as good as mine. Olofsson, Eichel, Stone, Dorofeyev, Hurdle, Saad, Barbashev, Howden, Kolasar. We are just keep an eye out for William Karlsson, of course. If he draws back in, that changes some stuff. But I think the top power play is pretty insurmountable. Dorofeyev, Hurdle, Eichel, Stone, Hannafin. Hannafin's back down to a more reasonable 5.1K. I think Dorofeyev is my favorite play here, though. Dude just lives to score goals. So that's about it, though. Not crazy interested in this spot either. Even if Olofsson's top line, you're talking 14 minutes, maybe power play 2, but he and Riley Smith are sort of interchangeable. So, who knows? Final game, the late night hammer. I don't even know what to call it. Like the Brent Burns revenge spot somehow. Just all the narratives in the world are Carolina and San Jose. Carolina, this game is the other 6.5. Carolina is a giga favorite. Yeah, I am very defeated by that news. Let's see. I can scroll down a bit for you here. Carolina and San Jose. Of course, the matchup looks stellar for Carolina, and it looks terrible for San Jose because that is these two teams. I don't think I need to explain that to you. For the Carolina Hurricanes, we do have new lines. Seth Jarvis, Sebastian Aho, Jackson Blake. They are 20K on the nose. They are confirmed to be power play 1 correlated, at least for the first period. What happens in the second period? Who knows? Taylor Hall is the other power play guy there. Andrei Svechnikov did not appear to be traveling with the team. So I'm guessing he's out in that case. Dmitry Orlov is back, though. RIP to Scott Morrow, who exits the lineup. But for some reason, it's going to be Slavin Burns, Walker Chatfield, Gostisbehere Orlov. Um, I don't know either. I'm not really sure why Gostisbehere Orlov is going to be a pair, but I do suspect that means Sean Walker will get a lot more ice time because I don't think Gostisbehere Orlov will play much. And Walker gets power play 2 time. He's 4K. It's against San Jose. Like, I think you can get there. I don't know. Yeah, that's about all I got. It's fine. He shoots. He's a shooty boy in the shootiest of shooty matchups. And then otherwise, of course, a cheaper Carolina 2, Hall, Kokiniemi, and Roslovic, 13K. Martinuk, Stahl, Stankoven, 12.4K. You get 3 power play guys with line 2. You only get 1 with line 3, but, Jordan Stahl, Martinuk, love the troll. So, honestly, either of those 2 lines are totally fine. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you one's a bad play because I think they're both totally fine. What I am not doing is playing the San Jose Sharks. So, by the way, I should call out that top line is 20K. That's because Seth Jarvis is 8,100. Shout out to DraftKings for nailing it. I mean, that's what you got to do. You got to take the good players on the good teams when they're playing in San Jose and Chicago and say, you want to play them? Pay for it. So, in this case, yeah, I think them being more expensive makes me more likely to play them because I don't think that they're going to be 25% owned here. And I like Jackson Blake. He's a really good prospect. He's been fine in the NHL this year. He's in the best possible spot. They're down Rantanen. They're down Svechnikov. Like, they need offensive weapons. It's Blake's turn to step up. Seth Jarvis and Aho. Jarvis in particular has stepped up all year long. And I'm an Aho guy. So, 20K, Carolina 1. Count me in. For San Jose, I actually don't know if these are the lines. Again, I don't really care because I'm not playing it, but Eklund, Celebrini, Toffoli, Will Smith, Wenberg, Graf. I actually think we saw Graf up with Celebrini. So in any case, that's going to be like a 15, 16, 17K line, regardless, some combination. I just can't get there. I'm not doing it against freaking Carolina. Not with Dmitry Orlov back. It's like anything that you could say, like, oh, at least there's this. I think that's kind of out the window. So I guess actually now that it comes to it, I need to see what Mr. Why am I blanking on his first name? Luca Cagnoni. What does he look like here? Yeah. Okay. So Luca Cagnoni is going to debut in the NHL regular season in this matchup. He is 2,500. He will be on the top power play unit. I really like the player. I really think he's going to be nothing crazy. I think he's got a real chance to be like honestly, I think he's got a chance to be what Lane Hudson is this year. Just, he's the same age, so whatever. I think he's got a really similar profile in the sense that he's not going to be super DFS relevant, but he's going to make a lot of power play 1 teammates a lot of money when he hits his sort of, 75th percentile range of outcomes here. He was a pretty late pick just a couple of years ago, but he's absolutely exploded in the AHL level. He just looks the part as a puck mover. So again, I'm not playing him in daily fantasy unless it's on like a night slate or something. But 2,500 for a power play 1 guy. It's just, do note that he's not going to shoot. He's absolutely not going to block pucks. He's not a Levchinov who's going to play in all situations and play 23 minutes a night and, in his career be a 26-minute guy. Like, that's just never going to be him. But yeah, I should mention that. Unfortunately, it's just another awful matchup for a shitty team's shitty power play, to have a cheap power play quarterback. So, Yeah, final note, Georgy Romanov, confirmed starter for Thursday. So what does that mean? Is it better? Is it worse than Georgiev? I don't know. You tell me. All right. Yeah, we did that in 70 minutes, guys. I do appreciate everyone who came to hang out. Hopefully, you got some good stuff for this Thursday slate. I am going to hit you with some top stacks and guarantee goals, and we will get on out of here. So, stack number one, let's just scroll back to the St. Louis Blues in a home matchup with Vancouver. That's right. I am betting on my playoff bet on the Blues. I am betting on Jordan Kyrou. I am betting on preseason favorite of mine, Dylan Holloway. Let's just do Holloway, Kyrou, and let's just do Braden Shen. Screw it. Like Shen's actually been okay. Um, last 10 games, 12 expected fantasy points a night for Kyrou versus 12 actual, 11 for Holloway versus 13 actual, and 8 for Shen with 10 actuals. So it's not like a crazy difference. That full line is going to cost you 15.8K. I believe Robert Thomas will get the tougher matchups too. So even that's like not really a concern. Yeah, I think Kyrou and Holloway will keep this up. I think they get another multi-point night, and that is why you should stack them as my first stack of the night. Shall we consult the rainbow for another twirl here? All right, let's do a Utah Buffalo game stack as the second stack of the night. How would we do that? Well, what do you say about Dylan Guenther, Barrett Hayton, and Sean Durzi? You're not getting the power play one in there, but $1,500 savings off of Sergachev. I think that's fine. Talked about how Durzi I really like. So let's do Hayton, Guenther, and Sean Durzi there. Shall we guarantee a couple of goals now? If anyone in the chat has a piping hot guaranteed goal, I would love to hear it. I'd love for some inspiration here. All right. Here's a guaranteed goal for you. Pierre-Luc Dubois, the guy who exists to apparently, I thought he existed to make me money. You know, for that first month stretch where he, Wilson, and McMichael were like plus 750 on DraftKings to get a point, like, you know, the same game parlay point parlays. I thought he existed to make me money. I think I did it like 5 times, and he never ever. Then that line never hit, despite hitting in like 6 of the first 20 games of the season. I just never caught it on the right nights. I think Dubois is going to pay us back here. Playing with Protas, I think that just makes him more likely to be a shooter. Playing with Ovi, you know, it sucks the air out of the room playing with Ovi. So Dubois will find himself open on the back door for an easy tap in, and Washington will get you your first guaranteed goal. Tom, the Dakota Joshua revenge goal. I mean, wow. Talk about, well, hold on. Let me make sure. Is this just a revenge against me? I think it is. Because he was a Toronto guy? Oh, no, okay. He did start his career in St. Louis. He got drafted by Toronto. Okay. So, yeah, Dakota Joshua, revenge spot. Welcome back. The scoreboard tribute, you know, welcome back, Dakota Joshua. Congratulations on beating cancer. They're going to show Matt Moody's face up on the Jumbotron, telling him he's a big stinky ogre who sucks at offense. And yeah, he's going to shove it down our throats with a guaranteed goal for 3K. I do love that from Tom here. Mark has Nick Ehlers. That's actually a pretty good one. I can't steal it though because it is $400 more than the $5,500 I have left. Let's go to this Islanders Montreal game. There's something here, right? Yeah, I can't quite do Slavkovsky. Did I do Line A last show? I feel like I did Line A last show. That's kind of dumb. All right, let's do Kirill Marchenko. 5,400 on a line of Kent Johnson and Adam Fantilli. That is absolute yes, please. We mentioned the Florida injury to Dmitry Kulikov. That is actually of super relevance for them. And obviously, Aaron Ekblad remains out and all the other Florida injuries. So let's get on board the Columbus Donkey train. Kirill Marchenko, our second guaranteed goal for Thursday evening. All right, that'll do it for me. Deeply thankful to the 10 sickos out here who just hung out and listened to me recite some hockey stuff for 75 minutes. I don't need to remind you, but we've got a nice golf tournament starting Thursday morning. We've got the NCAA tournament starting on Thursday. One of my favorite things about the tournament, I guess I build a bracket. Well, I'm going to build a bracket in a little bit because, I'm a sick fish, and maybe this is the year I build my perfect bracket and Elon sends me to the moon or whatever the hell that promo is. But on the DraftKings Sportsbook, if your state allows it, there is a survivor pool for the tournament, and I think that contest is so fucking cool. It's a survivor. It's exactly what it says it is. But what makes it so interesting is that when you pick your teams, you basically have to pick it so that you have both of the final two teams remaining at the end of the tournament, because in order to get to the final, you have to pick the team that wins in the final four, and then you have to have the other team that gets there because you actually have to pick them to win the entire event. So if you've never tried it before, I mean, it's pretty addicting if you like strategy games, if you like puzzles. Like they have a $20 contest that Doug and I, the aforementioned Doug from the podcast, like mentioned every time. Like we're gonna probably fire like 20 to 30 $20 entries and just sort of spread our bets out and put our heads together and figure out like what the optimal pathing is. And it's a game that I find super interesting, and it's not just blindly clicking a bracket. So maybe that's for you. Maybe the brackets are for you, but if you're more of a thoughtful, investor, and if you want something to drive you crazy at 2 a.m. on Wednesday evening, if you're a live listener, do take a look at those DraftKings pools. They're pretty fun. I can say, I believe in my experience over the past several years, there is an edge to them. People will be taking, literal underdogs. They will be taking, a Duke in the first round. Like people just do stupid shit. And yeah, so all right. That's all for me though. Thank you all for hanging out. Best of luck on Thursday. So from Doug, from DJ, and for myself, have a good slate, everybody, and we will see ya.